Hi, I'm John Stevenson, and we're going to be looking at the Stone of Hope, 1 Samuel chapter 7, in our continuing study of 1 Samuel. Where we left off, we had had the ark that had been captured, but then returned by the Philistines. And then we saw in chapter 7, verse 1, after it had come to Beth-shemesh and some people had died when they opened it up, now the men of Kiriath-jearim came and took the ark of the Lord and brought it into the house of Abinadab on the hill and consecrated Eleazar his son to keep the ark of the Lord. Verse 2, now from the day that the ark remained at Kiriath-jearim, the time was long, for it was 20 years, and all the house of Israel lamented after the Lord. Now we're on to the new section, verse 3. Then Samuel, and we haven't heard from Samuel since chapter 3. I think we heard of him briefly at the beginning of chapter 4. But now Samuel spoke to all the house of Israel, saying, if you return to the Lord with all your heart, remove the foreign gods and the Ashtaroth from among you, and direct your hearts to the Lord and serve him alone, and he will deliver you from the hand of the Philistines. The Philistines have been victorious, even though they weren't victorious over the ark. The ark sort of won over them, but they've still been sort of lording it over the Israelites. We're going to see them make reference to that in just a moment. Verses 4 and 5. So the sons of Israel removed the Baals and the Ashtaroth and served the Lord alone. They get rid of all their pagan idols. Verse 5, then Samuel said, gather all Israel to Mizpah. The word Mizpah just means the lookout point, the place where you can look out. So there's a number of Mizpahs throughout the Promised Land. Gather all Israel to Mizpah, and I will pray to the Lord for you. Verse 6, they gathered to Mizpah and drew water and poured it out before the Lord. This seems like some sort of libation offering. Reminds us a little bit of the time when water came from the rock. Maybe they're remembering that. And they fasted on that day and said there, we have sinned against the Lord. And Samuel judged the sons of Israel at Mizpah. By judging the sons of Israel, he's leading them in prayer. He's leading them in agreeing with God concerning their sin. They are confessing their sin before the Lord, and he's taking a leadership position in all of that. Verse 7, now when the Philistines heard that the sons of Israel had gathered to Mizpah, the lords of the Philistines went up against Israel, and when the sons of Israel heard it, they were afraid of the Philistines. Philistines, here, there's a gathering of Israelites. That must mean war. That must mean they're going to take a stand against us. Verse 10, now Samuel was offering up the burnt offering, and the Philistines drew near to battle against Israel. But the Lord thundered with a great thunder on that day against the Philistines and confused them, so that they were routed before Israel. The men of Israel went out of Mizpah and pursued the Philistines and struck them down as far as below Beth-kar. Notice what's happened. The people are worshiping, and the Philistines show up, and then God shows up. And he does that. Notice they haven't tried to pressure God. They haven't done anything with the ark or anything like that. God does it on his own. And he routs the Philistines, and now all the Israelites have to do is what we could describe as a mopping up operation, just chasing them back all the way back home. So what we've seen here, we saw chapters 1 through 3, we saw failure in Eli's line, but we saw success on the part of Samuel. Then in chapters 4 and 5, we had the ark lost, but then the ark was returned. And now in chapter 6, we had the people at Beth-shemesh struck down for opening the ark, but now the Philistines are struck down. And so the Philistines being struck down, that's a victory for God's people. Verse 12, then Samuel took a stone and set it between Mizpah and Shen and named it Ebenezer. Notice the name of the stone. First of all, the word stone is just the word Eben. And Ebenezer, it gets that name because thus far the Lord has nezered us. He has azered us. And so it will be stone of hope. Thus far the Lord, or stone of help, I should say. For thus far the Lord has helped us. So the Philistines were subdued, and they did not come any more within the border of Israel, and the hand of the Lord was against the Philistines all the days of Samuel. And so there's been a great victory on the part of Israel against the Philistines. Verse 14, the cities which the Philistines had taken from Israel were restored to Israel from Ekron even to Gath, everything in between and around that area. Those are border cities. And Israel delivered their territory from the hand of the Philistines, so there was peace between Israel and the Amorites. Notice Amorites, that's not another word for Philistine necessarily, but the Amorites are another people group that are against the Israelites. Verse 15, now Samuel judged Israel all the days of his life. He used to go annually on circuit. Notice Bethel. He would go from Bethel and over to Gilgal. We're not exactly sure where Gilgal is, hence the question mark. It's over near Jericho. And also Mizpah. So he would make a circuit among these cities, Bethel, Gilgal, and Mizpah, and he judged Israel in all these places. Verse 17, then his return was to Ramah, which becomes now his base of operations, for his house was there. And there he judged Israel, and he built there an altar to the Lord. It reminds us a little bit of Abraham, who would build an altar and call upon the name of the Lord. And then we saw Isaac build an altar and call upon the name of the Lord. And then we saw Jacob, finally, once Jacob came into the land, built an altar. And this is what Samuel does. It's a return to the Lord. It reminds us, especially the story of the stone of help, of what the Psalms say in a prophecy where it speaks of the stone which the builders rejected has become the chief cornerstone. This is the Lord's doing. It is marvelous in our eyes. We have a stone of help, a stone that has come for us, and that stone is Jesus, the one that was rejected by men but accepted by God, and has become the chief cornerstone of all that God is building today.